Hi boys and girls. Today we are going to start to blend oil pastels to color in our enlarged Georgia O'Keeffe flowers. So we just learned about analogous colors, which are three colors next to each other on the color wheel. It usually includes a primary, a tertiary, and a secondary. So I chose here a blue, green, and a green as my three colors that I'm going to blend on my Georgia O'Keeffe flower. So, first thing we are going to start with are our main petals. This is your first layer of petals on your big and large flower that we made macro size last art class. So, it doesn't matter which order you start your three color blend with. Miss Panaya is going to start with blue, then I'm going to blend in the blue-green, and then I'm going to blend in the green. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my blue, and like I said, we're going to start with this first layer of petals in the front. What I want to do when I'm using oil pastels is I want to apply a little bit of pressure, but not too much because they are softer than regular crayons or colored pencils or markers because they have oil in them. They are made with oil and pigment. That's why they're called oil pastels. So when I do this, I just want to make sure that I am applying even light pressure and I'm coloring evenly in one direction. I'm going to color from the middle of my flower outwards, kind of like a firework. So, starting with my blue, I'm going to start with this big petal here. I'm just going to kind of outline about 1/3 of the way up my flower petal, just to kind of give me an idea of where I want my blue to stop. From there, I'm going to apply even pressure. I'm going to color in one direction. And I am going to fill my petal up to this point that I have outlined with blue. Now, since the oil pastels are a little bit softer than regular crayons or anything else that we're used to, they will come down to the paper a little bit quicker. So all you're going to need to do is kind of dig your nail into the side of that oil pastel and peel that paper away to expose more of that color. And so I'm going to continue to color outwards from the center with my blue, just like a firework. And as I start to finish up my blue area, what you'll start to notice is I am not ending my blue. Oops, that also happens too. I'm kind of glad that this happened because one thing you'll notice is because the oil pastels are soft and they break easily, just because they're teeny tiny doesn't mean they don't work just as well. So if you happen to break yours off into a small piece, don't panic. It's still usable. You'll just have to give it a little pinch. But as I was saying, what you'll do is when you start to end your first color, notice how Miss Panaya is ending in an uneven, almost zigzag-ish line. My blue is not ending in an even straight line right here. I want it to be uneven and almost like a zigzag pattern, okay? And when I say zigzag, I don't mean an actual zigzag line. I just mean an uneven line that we can blend into, okay? So I finished with my blue on this petal. I feel good about it. I'm gonna cover up some of those peekaboos that are peeking through. And then I'm gonna set my blue to the side and I'm gonna start to move into my blue-green. Now, with my blue-green, I wanna do another third of my petal. So I'm just gonna outline where I want my blue-green to come to. And when I start to color my blue-green, I'm gonna start to blend it into my blue. Now, when I blend into my blue, I'm gonna color right over my blue. In some areas, I'm gonna go into the blue and pull my blue into my blue-green as well. So I'm going right over top of my blue in some areas, and I'm blending that blue and blue-green together by overlapping my two oil pastels. Now when I blend, same thing. With my blue-green, I'm not making a straight line. I'm going in to the blue more in some areas and less in other areas.
I'm gonna peel some of this paper away.
So now once I get up towards where my blue-green area is going to end, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the blue. I'm going to end it in an uneven line that I can blend easily into my next color. Always coloring from the center out towards the edge of the petal. Now you'll notice my hands are getting a little bit dirty. That is completely normal. The softness of the oil pastels allows it to get all of your hands nice and messy, but that's what happens when we're in the art room. We get lots and lots of messes. Okay. From here, I feel good about my blue-green. I feel good about how it blended in with my blue. If at any time you feel like you need to go back in with your first color and blend over top, you can do that as well. So now I'm gonna move into my last color, which is my green. So the remainder of this petal is going to be my green. Now, my four main petals are what I'm focusing on right now. So I wanna make sure that I don't color any other area just yet, because they may not be the same colors when we're finished. So now I'm going to fill in the rest of my petal with my green, blending in to my blue-green, just as we did with our blue and our blue-green before. Okay, so I have all three colors pretty much blended together. I went in, I covered up most of my peekaboos, and at this point, once you have the whole petal filled up, if you want to go back in and blend your colors a little bit more and pull some of them together and add a little bit, like I'm pulling some of my blue into my blue-green just to blend it together slightly more than I had before, then at this point you could do that. And same thing with my blue-green and my green. If I wanted to pull some more blue-green into my green, I can do that. The only thing that you have to really be careful of is that you're coloring in the same direction from the center of the flower outwards. Okay, I feel good about that one. Now the next step is to do that exact same process on the other three big petals that I have on my enlarged Georgia O'Keeffe flower. Okay, so now that I have my first layer of petals done, they are all blended together. These are my main petals of my George O'Keeffe flowers. So I do have a second layer of petals, which if you have a second layer of petals, we are going to just choose one color that our second layer is going to be. You are not going to blend our second layer. We're just going to choose one color that goes with the analogous colors that we chose for our blended petals, and we're just going to color it that one color. So Miss Panaya chose this green color, which is similar to what I blended my petals with, but is still a little bit different. It's a little bit lighter. So this section here of my drawing is my second layer of petals, my petals that are behind. So all I'm going to do is coloring in one direction from the middle outwards like we've been doing. I'm just going to color this petal in with my green. Now it could either be a second layer of petals, it could be a leaf, whatever you decide. You just want to make sure that you choose a color that's going to relate to the colors that you blended your main petals with. Okay, friends, so I have all of my petals colored in. The last part of my outer section that needs done are these sections here that are not petals, they're not leaves, they are my background. Now, for your background, you're gonna wanna choose a color that is nothing like any of the colors you used so far. So, since I did a blue-green analogous color scheme, I'm going to choose red for my background. Not only is it a warm color, I've only used cool colors so far, but red is the complement to green, so I figured red will really make my flower stand out. So I'm just going to do these small sections of my background with my red. Now some of you might have really big sections of background, which is fine, but you will color your entire background that one color that you choose as your background color. If you notice, I always outline the area that I'm about to color first. This just helps me control where my oil pastel is gonna go. Okay, boys and girls, the next part that we need to complete is the center of our flower, the circle, which we've left for last. For this part, you could do a couple of options. You could do a neutral color. Miss Panay is gonna go with this goldish brown color, almost like a mustard. And I'm going to blend in a darker brown. You could go with two warm colors if your petals are cool colors, if you wanted to blend like an orange and a yellow or a red and an orange. But you want to stick with something that is different from your petals and is going to look natural and can still be blended. So I'm going to start with my lighter color, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the circle first with my light mustard color, and you'll notice it will smear a little bit with your petal color. So I'm getting a little bit of blue in my yellow, which is okay. I just want to make sure that once I'm done going around my edges here, I'm going to get that blue off with another piece of paper. Just kind of clean it off before I fill in the rest of my circle, just so I don't have any blue on the inside. And then from here, I'm going to fill in the rest of the circle. So now that I have the middle of my flower done, I'm going to take that darker color and I'm going to start to blend in from the outside of my circle in towards the inside, just to kind of create some texture and a little bit of depth for the middle of our flower. And all I'm going to do is kind of create an outer layer of the darker brown, and then I'm going to start to pull some of that darker brown in. Once I have the dark brown in there, I'm going to go back to my lighter color, and I'm just going to start to blend that brown in with my lighter color so it doesn't look like it's just sitting on top. So I'm just kind of working in a circular motion, blending my dark and my light together. Okay, so I have my middle blended together. If you wanted to go in and add a little bit more light in the middle and work it out, you could, but I feel pretty good about this right now. I'm going to let it be. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that same dark brown that I used. You don't have to use a dark brown. If you wanted to go super bold and use black, that's fine. But I would just find a color darker than any color you've used so far, and we're just going to outline everything that we've drawn to really make it stand out. So I'm going to start with my circle here, and I'm just doing a nice, neat outline to kind of separate my circle from my petals. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to outline the outside of my petals.
Make sure you take your time with this. It could get sloppy if we aren't careful.
So anywhere that I had a pencil line drawn, I am just kind of going over with my darker oil pastel. Okay, so I have everything outlined. It just separates it ever so slightly enough. And the last thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit of highlight with a white oil pastel. My white oil pastel is going to help the flower take a little bit more shape and look like my petals are folding over, or like they're actually rounded. So usually somewhere along the middle of the petal is where the highlight will fall, because of the way that the petal is rounded. So with my white oil pastel, I'm just going to blend in a little bit of white, going in the same direction that I had been coloring, following the shape of my petal, just adding a little bit of highlight. And this could go down into your petal more, depending on where the highlight falls. And if you ever wanted to take your finger and just kind of soften up those lines so it doesn't look like your white's sitting right
On top. It's always helpful.
added some highlight. You can always go back in and blend it a little bit more. But that is the last step that we are going to do for our Georgia O'Keeffe oil pastel enlarged flowers.